Nash County Board of Commissioners second meeting for September, on September 19th to order at this time. And I apologize, I've been just a couple of minutes late, had a couple of late add-ons to the agenda. And it's customary for us to begin each one of our meetings with a prayer by city commissioner. And that will be done by Bishop Wayne Wilkes this morning, this afternoon. And we also early doors doing a pledge allegiance flag, two flags, will be done by Bishop Wayne. I also will like to say, if you're here this morning, this afternoon, and I will say morning all day, I apologize for that. You're welcome to use this time. We do a prayer by commissioner. You have your own prayer. You're welcome to use for morning silence, whichever you so desire. And at this time, I would like for us to stand and have a moment of silence for the funeral of the Queen today, and know that that's one of America's long time best allies that we've had.
Let us pray. Dear God, thank you for your continuous presence in our lives. Help us to remember that we are not alone in our battles and that it is your strength and grace that gets us through the tough times. Bless this board and those here today. Bless Nash County, dear God, and bestow upon this board the wisdom and understanding to make what we feel are the right decisions for all of Nash County. God bless the royal family, and let everyone say amen.
Amen. Amen. Would you join us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chairman, I think we need you to unmute.
Probably do, since I muted right here. Thank you. I would need to make the board aware of two items we need to add to the agenda. I'd like to add them as item number 11A and item number 11B. 11A, with your permission, would be a grant application that has a time sensitivity to it, and something that's come up pretty recent that Mr. Boone will present to us, and it is a grant to do, have money to do a regional study to build a wastewater treatment plant in the southern part of the county. And item 11B would be a grant that has come to our awareness, and we'd like to give a letter of support to the school system, and it is called the Sound Rivers Grant, and it will be used by the school system for improved drainage on some of the school sites that we currently have. Any objection to adding those two items to the agenda? Seeing none, they stand added, and we'll move on to item number 4 on the agenda, which is Nash County Master Gardener Program. And I'd like to call on Matt at this time, if he would come forward and make the presentation. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing good, doing good.
I appreciate you having me here to talk about the Master Gardener Program. My name is Matt Stevens with Nash County Cooperative Extension. And I am the horticulture agent for Extension, and one of my duties as horticulture agent is to manage the Master Gardener Program. Extension Master Gardener Program is not just a gardening class, it's a volunteer program. So we recruit, train, and support volunteers to help grow Extension's reach. Our mission is to spread research-based information throughout the county, and our Master Gardener volunteers help spread that research-based information as it pertains to gardening and gardening-related topics. So they essentially allow us to do our job better, to reach more people, more citizens of the county. The Master Gardener Program is a nationwide program. It started in the state of Washington in the early 1970s. because the extension agents at that time were not able to reach the citizens in the way that they felt was necessary. So they recruited volunteers, trained them, and gave them the opportunity to share information with the public. North Carolina picked up on that program in the late 1970s, and it's now present in 82 counties across the state. It's administered at the state level at NC State University. And in those 82 counties, there's an extension person, typically the horticulture agent, but perhaps another member, staff member, who runs that program on the local level. Like all extension programs, we have these state guidelines that we follow, and then we tailor the programs based to the county needs. So each county is a little bit different in its population and issues and so forth, and as a result, each Master Gardener program is a little bit different. There's over 3,800 Master Gardeners across the state. Here in Nash County, we have 68 volunteers that are active. Like most volunteer organizations, we did take a little bit of a hit in membership during the COVID years, but we've been able to recruit new members the last 2 years and do 2 consecutive trainings. So we've got our numbers back up a little bit. Snapshot of what the state program looks like. So we've got about 3,800 volunteers statewide. In 2001, had over 150,000 volunteer hours. The independent sector creates an annual estimate of the value of a volunteer hour. And current value of a volunteer hour is $29.95. So based on the number of volunteer hours and that valuation, we have a statewide impact of about $4.1 million. And we've reached over 70,000 North Carolina residents. And I'll share the local equivalent to those statistics in just a minute. Mission of the Master Gardener program is to teach people to select, place, and care for plants in an environmentally responsible manner. So, sometimes people think that gardening or the Master Gardener program is just about making things look pretty in our landscapes, but it's really about making smart decisions. So we want people to buy plants that are suitable for our environment. We want them to care for them in an appropriate way. We want them to use fertilizers and chemicals responsibly, and we use our Master Gardeners to help spread that information. Outreach of the program, we work to teach youth, homeowners, and gardeners how to create and care for healthy lawns, productive gardens, and attractive landscapes while preserving our natural resources and protecting our environment. Some of the focus areas of the program are sustainable home food production. So we help people grow better vegetable gardens and take care of their fruit trees and vines and things like that, so that they can feed themselves with the products of those gardens. We work to make sure people are selecting proper plants for the growing conditions and local climate and local environment. We work to teach people correct pruning practices, fertilization, and pest management practices so that those plants that they select can thrive and maximize their productivity. We work to teach people water conservation for lawns and gardens so that we're good stewards of our natural resources. And we teach things like composting so that we can reuse products that come from the garden to grow better gardens for the future. Some focus areas for our training course. We've got about a 14-week course that we offer once a year, and so each week we cover one of these topics that you see listed. So we start with botany and work on down the line. And the idea is to teach the participants in the class enough about these topics and enough about problem-solving strategies and resources that are available to them so that when people in the county, citizens encounter a problem in their garden, our Master Gardeners can help them diagnose those problems and come up with an effective solution. So we teach them all these areas, and then we ask them to go out and share what they've learned with others. And we allow them to do that in any way that they they see fit. We want them to sort of use their creativity to reach people. And so sometimes that creativity comes out in different ways. So we've got public events that we hold where we're dealing with youth and children, and we want to get their attention and engage them. So we might have a master gardener dress up as the grouchy ladybug and read a story about how ladybugs eat aphids and protect their plants. Or we might be having a tomato program, and so we've got master gardeners dressed up accordingly. So we've actually got the grouchy ladybug and the tomato queen here, so appreciate their service. So those pictures are meant to show the dedication that master gardeners have to the cause. If you prefer statistics to pictures, I have those as well. So the Master Gardener program has been active in Nash County since the year 2000, and in that time, our volunteers have committed over 41,697 volunteer hours. And using that same valuation from the independent sector, that equates to a value of $1,248,795 over that time period. So, if I've never told you how valuable you are to Nash County, that's the dollar figure that we've come up with. Among our 68 active volunteers, we have 49 volunteers who've been active for 5 or more years, 12 who have been active for 10 or more years, 4 who have been active for 20 or more years, 16 volunteers who've reached at least 500 volunteer hours, 6 who've reached 1,000 or more, and 1 volunteer who's passed the 2,000-hour mark. So our grouchy ladybug is one of our 20-year volunteers who's reached over 1,000 hours of volunteer time. And Tomato Queen has got over 5 years and 500 hours. So both very dedicated volunteers to the cause. Some things that the Master Gardeners do to deliver information to the public. So one is our Ask a Master Gardener booth. We typically do this at the Farmers Market in Rocky Mount. So weekly we have volunteers staffing the booth, and customers at the market can come and ask questions or bring plant samples for identification and that sort of thing. We occasionally also participate in events like the Blooming Festival or other county events where we offer the same type of service. We have an annual plant sale. Plant sale is a big fundraiser for our Master Gardeners, but it's also an educational event because we're providing information about the plants that we sell, and we're sort of curating plants that are suitable for the local climate and the local environment. And most of the plants that are sold there are present at the Arboretum, at the Ag Center. So when people come to shop for plants, we can show them exactly where they're growing and what they look like when they're mature, just by directing them to the grounds where they're planted. This year, our Master Gardeners are also participating in a statewide research project for a disease called basal downy mildew. This is a fungal disease that affects basil. There's several Master Gardeners that are growing 6 different varieties of basil and taking weekly measurements on the amount of disease present in those varieties. And we're also doing taste tests. So Master Gardeners are collecting all this data for scientific purposes. We have annual wreath making workshops, youth programs in cooperation with 4-H. And all of these are sort of geared towards getting usable information to the public. The biggest project of the Master Gardeners historically and continues to be the Nash County Arboretum. So these are the grounds and gardens surrounding the Nash County Ag Center building. These gardens were almost entirely designed, planted, and maintained by the Master Gardener volunteers. So a tremendous amount of work has gone into these gardens. And of those 41,000 hours that I talked about, probably 75% of those hours directly relate to the Arboretum itself. The Arboretum provides an area for plant study for identification purposes for nursery and landscape professionals. There's certain certifications that those professionals can get where they have to identify a list of 375 plants. And our original planting at the Arboretum was based around that certification list. So the idea was that those professionals could come to the Arboretum and study for their certification exam. We also provide education for home gardeners and youth. We provide opportunities for environmental education, community service. We've had lots of student groups and Eagle Scouts come and do projects at the Arboretum in the past. We, of course, use it extensively for our Master Gardener trainings. And beyond all the educational purposes, it's just a nice place to enjoy and relax. With Master Gardeners, we sort of have this model that I've mentioned already about teaching the volunteers something and then having them share that information. So I'll show you a couple examples of that. What you see here is what we call our 10-plant tours. So we offer a monthly tour of the Arboretum, but these tours are really intended to be classes. So it's not just walk around and look and see what looks pretty that day. You actually structure a class and kind of teach as you're walking around. So we pick 10 plants that share something in common, and during the course of that tour, we talk about that characteristic and those 10 plants. So in the top left, you see me teaching one of those tours, and you've got a couple people looking on. In the bottom left, you've got a Master Gardener teaching that tour. So they've taken the model that we created for them, and then they're taking the opportunity to share that information. And the same sort of thing's happening here. So this is our beekeeping area at the Arboretum. In the top left, we've got a few Master Gardeners creating that bee yard. They're putting the fence up, building the structure that the bee hive is going to go on. And then once that area was completed, we had Master Gardener volunteers who would tend to the bees that we had on site. They learned the art of beekeeping through having that at the Arboretum, and now we have multiple volunteers who are able to teach others how to be beekeepers. So you see Christine there teaching beekeeping at the Women in Ag program last fall, and you see Nelson teaching about beekeeping to students at a school program. And then finally, just an example here of the pollinator garden. So, the pollinator garden, like all the other gardens in the Arboretum, was conceptualized and designed and planted by Master Gardener volunteers. A tremendous amount of research went into selecting the appropriate plants to put in that garden. And it's sort of a direct response to the kind of questions that we get in the Extension office, people wanting to know what they can plant to help out the declining bee population or the declining monarch butterfly population. So we built this garden to show those types of plants. And then, based on all the research that went into creating that garden, Ann Sickinger, who you see in the top right there, has made herself a local expert in pollinator gardens and pollinator plants. So she's now able to teach others how to do the same thing. Just a couple more to finish up here. Earlier this year, we went through a strategic planning process for the Nash County Arboretum, where our Master Gardeners identified areas that they wanted to focus on for the next several years. So we came up with 5 areas for our focus. First being grounds improvement, beautification, and natural resource conservation. Second being education. Third being promotion and marketing. Fourth being fundraising, and the 5th being outreach. Within those 5 focus areas, we have several major goals or projects that we want to to go out to complete in the next several years to sort of meet those focus areas. The number one biggest need in the Arboretum is to upgrade the pathways for adequate safety and mobility of our visitors. We do have a lot of elderly folks who come to the Arboretum, or people with children who come to the Arboretum. And frankly, a lot of our pathways through the gardens are in really rough shape, and it's difficult for people with strollers or walkers or canes to move around. And we actually had someone fall during a tour in March, which was a difficult thing for us to come to grips with. So the picture that you see there, we actually took up some paving stones that were in kind of a rough area, and they were loose and they were a tripping hazard. So we took them up out of the pathway and created sort of a new garden. This is like a crevice-style rock garden using those paving stones. So we've got a short-term solution there for some of our problems, but there's quite a lot of pathways there that still need addressing. We have worked with Patsy McGee and Emily Moore to apply for a grant to get some funding to improve those pathways. And we hope to get good news on that next month. We'd also like to look at getting a covered pavilion or shelter of some sort, so that when we have educational programs out there, it's a little bit easier for us to have sort of a classroom-style learning environment. We would like to get a sign at the entrance to the Ag Center at Eastern Avenue that indicates the Nash County Arboretum. And we'd also like to get signage on the highways at the exit on 64 to direct people to the Arboretum. And just to close with a return to the value that the Master Gardeners have. So we have that that value of the volunteer time that the volunteers have given over the 20 years of the life of the program. So $1,248,000. Master Gardeners also do a tremendous amount of fundraising through the plant sale and other means. So all that money is earmarked towards the Nash County Arboretum. So over those 20 years, we've raised $146,000 towards that project. And we've also received several grants to support the Arboretum over the years, so that's another $38,000. So total value, if you add those three figures up, is very close to $1.5 million over the life of the Master Gardener program. So I'm not here to ask for money by any means. I listed these projects that we are interested in doing, but we are looking for grants and other funding opportunities for those projects. But I do want to show that the Master Gardeners bring a tremendous amount of value to the county in and of themselves. So with that, I don't have anything else to share with you, but if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to entertain those.
Questions from commissioners?
Yes. When is your next group start training to certify for Master Gardener?
So we typically offer trainings in the late winter, early spring. So we typically start them around the 1st of February and run through the end of April. So we'll have one in that same time period next year.
What's your max enrollees at one time?
We've done the training for anywhere from 10 people to 20 people. So I'd go higher than 20, but we've typically been in that range, 10 to 20 per class.
Is it 10 to 20?
Yes.
Can make it any larger?
I would certainly take more than 20 students if we had that many apply in a given year.
I saw on there where you were talking about promotion. In other words, I assume you meant you're letting the public know that the Master Gardener program is available here in Nash County.
Yes.
And you should get a flood of interest on that.
Well, we,
I know you can't take so many at one time, but maybe a couple of times during the year. Of course, I know in the fall, you prefer the spring, starting late winter, early spring and go on. But have you looked at possibly maybe doing 2 a year?
I haven't looked at doing 2 a year. I have done the class occasionally at different times of the year.
I know
So,
it's time consuming
Yeah.
on your part to make all that preparation, but maybe some of the master gardeners could help you with that.
that's certainly possible.
Some of
A
them are
lot of
pretty-
them will come and do a presentation during the course
Yeah.
to sort of assist what I'm teaching.
Yeah, some of them are pretty good. I can remember when I was following it, in fact, my wife went through and became
Yes.
certified. But she, due to health reasons, she had to kind of drop off. She couldn't get in the minimum volunteer times to maintain as a master gardener.
Yeah.
Other questions from commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Commissioner Outlaw, I realize probably that was your outside presentation for the book.
That's correct.
Okay, and I apologize, I should have called on you to make that introduction.
No, you did very fine. I just wanted to make a comment. My wife and I recently had the opportunity to spend quite a bit of time at the Ag Center, and it's pretty obvious that that Arboretum is a well-kept secret. Not many people know about it. Not many people know what happens over there by the volunteers that you've got. And this is something that I'm glad to get before the public, and I'm hoping that the public will come to the Ag Center, walk the garden, see what the people do, spend a little time out there, because the dedication is obvious from the volunteers that you've got. It's a beautiful area, and it's something that if you haven't been out, you're missing a real treat. So I want you to thank the gardeners on behalf of myself and this board for what they do in that area. It's good work you're doing, and we thank you for that.
I appreciate that very much. The comment or the focus area of promotion is really to get that word out. A lot of the garden clubs and people who have gardening as their primary hobby seem to know us, but the general public beyond that does not know the
That's
Arboretum
one of the reasons,
is there.
the
So we-
reasons that we've asked you to be here today, to get that word out.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Matt, we appreciate it, and appreciate the volunteers being here today.
All right, thank you very much.
I do wish you had worn what you wore in the pictures today. All right. Thank you a lot. And as Commissioner Outlaw said, it is a not intentional kept secret in Nash County. Commissioner Outlaw, I'll call on you to do number 5, which you should have done before, if you want to move forward with that.
We're going to have a presentation, a fire district presentation. I'll call on Assistant County Manager Scott Rogers to make that presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner Outlaw. So my responsibility today is to share some information with the board as it relates to how we orchestrate fire protection in Nash County and how we utilize the different types of districts that are authorized by the state law to fund those districts. Before I get too far into the presentation, I just would like to say to you that in my previous assignment, I had an opportunity to travel all across the state of North Carolina and even across the country and be involved with some of the most professional fire service folks there is in this country. And what I found out was that when I would come back to Nash County, what we have here in the fire departments is just as top-notch service provided as anywhere else in the country. And the reason for that is the vast amount of volunteers that still volunteer their time to train and respond to the crisis of the citizens in our county. So my hat is off to those folks that do volunteer and make our fire service what it is. So what I wanted to try to do today was to help you understand the basis of the procedures that govern fire protection provided by counties in North Carolina to help you understand the distinct differences in the types of fire districts recognized by the general statute, understand the types of districts we use here in Nash County, and then finally evaluate how tax rates and insurance rates affect the pocketbook of our citizens, if you will. So in North Carolina, this is maybe some information I wouldn't have shared with you when I was fire marshal, but I would share with you that in North Carolina, counties are not responsible, or not required rather, to furnish fire protection or even fund fire protection. However, the majority of them all across the state do, because they see that as an essential service that is best provided by the government. There's no requirement to provide equal service to all properties of citizens within a governmental unit. There can be higher levels of services in some areas. The provision of higher service is often related to funding. If you will remember, fire protection basically started out as a community responsibility before it became a governmental responsibility in the history of our county and all the other counties in North Carolina. So the amount of protection and the level of protection was determined by the residents in a particular area. And still today, we have different areas that anticipate and quite frankly want a different level of service than everyone throughout the county. So by law here in North Carolina, in Nash County, the county is responsible to provide fire protection. Seems contradictory to what I just said, but the reason for that is because the decision was made in the 1960s, 70s, and even in the 80s that we would begin to collect a fire tax in Nash County. So when we started collecting that fire tax, then that put the requirement upon us as a county to provide fire protection. So now the county is responsible to ensure that services is provided in a sufficient manner to justify the tax. So we have a contract with each department that provides services in Nash County, and that contract requires or contains minimum requirements that they must meet in order to continue to receive funding. There are a couple of different ways of funding fire protection in North Carolina. The general statute allows very distinct ways. The first way, which is what we are currently using in Nash County, is what's called a rural fire protection district, or a general statute 69 district, which is I'll explain here to you in just a second. There also is an alternative way. Of course, county commissioners are authorized in North Carolina to develop service districts for a variety of reasons, and one of those reasons is fire protection. You can do a service district at a local level, you can do a regional district, or you can do a county-wide district. And then the last way, of course, is the general fund. And of course, we still in Nash County, as you well know, you do allow a $4,500 per department allocation that comes directly from general fund. But that also is different amongst other counties as the way that is handled. So how do we provide fire protection? We know we collect a fire tax from rural fire protection districts. Then there are basically three ways that we can provide fire protection as a county. The first two are both used in Nash County. First, of course, is contracting with a private nonprofit fire department, which is what we do in every instance with the exception of Nashville. In the Gully District, which is the area outside of the town of Nashville, the county contracts with the town of Nashville Fire Department, which is your second bullet. We can contract with a private nonprofit, we can contract with a municipal department. And then a much less utilized way in North Carolina is a county-owned fire department. There's technically only two of those in North Carolina at this particular time. New Hanover is one. They have a county-wide, county-owned fire department. And then in Vance County, they have a small department that is owned by the county that serves one particular district. So those are the only two places that currently occurs in North Carolina. So if I might go back and explain the difference in the two types of funding districts that I mentioned, the first being the Rural Fire Protection District, or the 69 district, as I called it before, is authorized in 69.25. Counties are granted the authority to establish rural fire protection districts for the purpose of levying a special property tax to fund fire service provided in each district. These particular districts are an area outside of a corporate limits with boundaries designated by a petition of 35% of the resident freeholders in that area. That petition process, if you will, was done back in the late 60s, early 70s, and even a couple done in the 80s. So they have been in place a long, long time, those rural fire protection districts. The rural fire protection district cannot exceed 15 cents per $100 evaluation that has been authorized by the resident freeholders in that district. So again, that is typically what we have in Nash County NAS rural fire protection districts. Some of the advantages to those, of course, were they did give the citizens of the community an ability to vote as to whether a fire tax was collected in that district or not. Some of the drawbacks in it is that we have begun to see all across the state and country that 15 cents per $100 is not funding fire protection in some particular areas at this point. So it is limited to the 15 cent. The other is that rural fire protection district lines cannot be changed. They were established by that petition process and can't be changed. The next is a fire service district, which sometimes is referred to as a 153 district. They're authorized in General Statute 153-300. Again, this allows the county to develop a service district for a variety of purposes. For today's purposes, we're talking, of course, about fire protection and rescue services. This district has no specific maximum rate, so the 15 cent per 100 does not apply. The only rate is that the aggregate property tax limit not exceed the $1.50 per $100 valuation. This too is an area outside of corporate limits with the boundaries approved by the County Board of Commissioners in which a tax is levied without referendum. This does not require a vote. It is simply a decision of the governing body. And I would point out that both of these districts, quite honestly, a rural fire protection district and a fire service district, can include a municipal territory if it is approved by resolution by the town and the county, which we have done in several areas of our county as well. So just to give you an example, and it's a little bit difficult to see in the only map that I could find, but to the left here, you see a map of Nash County, and if you look very closely, you see the red lines that are depicted on this map. Each one of those are individual fire districts at this particular time. So you could consider them, since you can't see it very closely, you could consider them to be rural fire protection districts. So I have, of course, been asked many times about utilizing a service district. There's a couple of ways to do that. One way would be that you could take those existing lines that are currently in place or something thereof and convert those to service districts and apply the exact same tax rate that is being applied to each one of them now, which in theory would provide very little, if any, significant change to the fire service or to the fire protection being provided. You could also apply a consistent rate to each district where each one of the districts apply to the same rate, or you could basically erase the red lines and have one service district that provided for the exact tax all across the county. I would tell you this, is that when you do that, there is an example of that in Wake County. Wake County has established a countywide service district that has a consistent rate all across the county. But I will tell you that when you do that, it requires much, much more oversight on the county's part to the money that is being spent for fire protection. Simply because is that today you have each department with an individual budget, an individual board of directors that makes decisions on equipment purchases, staffing levels, and so forth. If you're applying a single rate all across the county, then it basically requires the county to be more involved in the cost of equipment, the payroll of personnel, and so forth, in order to make the system be fair to all the districts throughout the county. So if you were to go to a single a single service district, that would in fact be a major, major change to the way fire protection is currently accomplished in Nash County. So if I might go back just a minute. Maybe I can't. Thank you. So again, I just wanted to point out, using Wake County as a model of the countywide service district, that is a significant change, again, in the way we do business today. What I would also offer to you is that I personally believe that you will see some changes in fire protection, not only in Nash County, but all across the state in coming years. And when I say coming, I mean 5 to 10 years probably, because of the fact of diminishing volunteers and cost of equipment and other things. All across the state, there is a trend that is beginning of combining districts, merging districts. Of course, annexation in some parts of the state has changed the appearance of fire districts. So I do think there are some changes coming in the future. But again, and I think we're poised, ready for those changes in Nash County to a great degree. But again, there are several different ways to move to a service district. And those, of course, being applying that existing rate, applying a consistent rate, or applying a rate all across the county. So the last thing I'd like to share with you is to talk just a bit about fire insurance districts, which are totally different. If you haven't picked up on it, there's a theme in my presentation here that the word fire district is somewhat of a misnomer. A fire district, the word fire, or the two words of fire district, don't really describe a district in the way that we need it to. So is it a rural fire protection district? Is it a service district? Or is it an insurance district? So now I want to talk about insurance districts just a minute. Insurance districts are in addition to the taxing district. So the taxing district pays the bills. The insurance district is authorized by the county in order to determine the insurance classification of a property within that district. These are also outside of corporate limits, and these boundaries have to be approved by the Board of Commissioners for fire insurance purposes only. So we have to have established insurance districts, which we do in our county, for 9S inspection purposes, which means that the department is meeting the minimum requirements by the state to be a rated fire department. They have to have a rated insurance district, and of course, we have rated insurance districts all across our county. You can rate districts at 5 miles, and you can rate districts at 6 miles. In a 6-mile rated territory, you can only, the best insurance rate you can receive is a 9. So we have some very, very small areas of 6-mile insurance districts in our county, but the vast majority is covered by 5-mile districts, which allow us to rate those districts at a number anywhere from 10 to 1. 1 being the best, kind of like your golf game, I guess, but 1 is the best rating. And of course, property owners receive a discount on their homeowner's insurance as it relates to what rated district they're in. For all practical purposes, a Class 6 is the best rating that a homeowner can realize. But again, a business owner or small business owner can enjoy a rate lower than a 6 if the fire department receives that rating. So just to kind of give you an idea of what that means, how that affects the county, I wanted to take you through a little short exercise here. I've picked a piece of property in our county. This particular piece of property is in the Red Oak Tax District. So the current rate of tax on that property is 7 cents per 100. And that property is also in the Red Oak Fire Insurance District, which currently carries a Class 6 rating. So I've got two pieces of, two forms here in front of you, one being a tax bill from Nash County for this particular property. So if you look on the left, and again, I know it's very small, but what you'll see is that at 7 cent rate, this particular property owner pays $226.27 in fire tax that is used to fund the Red Oak Fire District, okay? The next piece of literature I'd like to call your attention to is a homeowner's billing notice for this same property. And what you see here is that a year's worth of homeowner's insurance for this particular property costs $1,451, okay? So if you keep those two figures in mind, and I'll show it to you where it's a little easier to see on this next slide, What you see is that if you look at this house on this piece of property, being in a Class 6 territory, the homeowner's rate is $14.51, just like you see on that bill. If this particular district was a Class 10, in other words, it did not meet the minimum requirements, we did not have fire protection. So heaven forbid, the fire department said, you know what, $226 is not enough for us to be able to pay the bills, we got to shut down. Then that property would go to a Class 10 rating, right? The worst rating there is. If that were to occur, then that same property would then have to pay $2,292 per year in homeowners insurance. So what you see here is just by simply being in a Class 6 district, paying $226 in fire tax, this resident receives a reduction of $841, okay? Because again, the insurance would go up by that much, would it not be for the insurance district that department provides. So what you see here is that when it's all said and done, you've got an $841 reduction in homeowners, you pay your $226 in fire tax, you still realize a savings of $614.73. So again, the takeaway that I'd really like for you to have today is that the many, many volunteers in this county is what allows us to provide that service to the citizens in the county. So I also wouldn't want you to overlook the value of the service from saving lives and property. But again, today I was just illustrating to you the savings in actual dollars. So that's my presentation for you. I really wanted you to try and understand the difference between rural fire protection districts and service districts, but I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Questions of Scott at this time? Mr. Belfield?
Yes, you were saying that fire districts are set pretty permanent, even if a municipality annex in some of that fire district where it may be rural is still responsible for
No, sir. If it
covering
is,
that.
it can be an established rural fire protection district, but annexation would supersede that. So you make a valid point.
Would supersede that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, I didn't understand that when you, because I thought it would, but.
It would. I didn't mention
hear
annexation, but you're right.
Insurance classification.
Yes, sir.
What factors are used to, for homeowners, the
Okay.
insurance classification in a particular fire district?
Sure. So the Office of State Fire Marshal comes on a periodic basis and evaluates the fire district. They look at three things. They look at the ability of the communications center to receive and deliver fire alarms to the fire department. That's the first issue. The second issue is the fire department itself. How many engines do they have? How many tankers do they have? How many personnel do they have? How many training hours they have? Loose equipment, a variety of things. And then the third piece of the equation is the water supply, whether that be hydrants, whether it be a water haul situation from ponds and reservoirs. But they grade all three of those items and develop a grade between 10 and 1.
How often is that done? Is it done annually?
No, sir, it's supposed to be done on a 5-year rotation.
5 years.
But of course, it's behind because of COVID and other issues, staffing issues at the state level.
Okay.
Other questions? Mr. Arrington?
So what's the average or the most in our volunteer fire districts are Class 6?
I'm sorry now?
How many are Class 6?
Yeah, how many
How many are sick?
are here?
I don't know the specific number off. Do you know, Brent, right off the top of your head? Okay. The majority, we have maybe 3 that are less than a Class 6. In other words, higher than a Class 6 and a Class 7, 8, 9, somewhere in there.
Okay.
that's something you could provide to the board with
Yeah,
an email
absolutely.
later.
Yeah, and the only reason I don't know off the top of my head is we're in a process of changing right now. We've got inspections going on every week right now. So we've had a lot of changes just in this last 6 months that I don't have in my head.
Okay. So in order to say that everybody's getting the same level of service, say with the classification, is to make sure that all districts meet that class certification, whatever it is that they need to get there.
Right. Our current contract does not require that they receive a Class 6 rating. It requires that they maintain a Class 9 rating at a minimum. And of course, we do that all across the county. But we set out on a project, oh, gosh, 10 or 12 years ago, I guess now, to get everybody below a 9, and we have done that.
Yeah. So anyway, I guess I'm saying, if we want to get everybody close to the same, we had to identify the things that we could possibly do to make them all come close to the same
To the
class.
same insurance rating?
Yes.
I would probably say that would be virtually impossible because of the fact that the insurance rate is always determined based on the fire flows in the district. So what I mean is you have a fire district that covers 2 or 3 schools, they got some big chicken house operations in their territory, then their fire flow is very high. So it's hard to lower their rate at the same rate it would be in a district that doesn't have a lot of property in that district. So it's kind of counterproductive because you need growth in order to fund the districts. But the more larger properties there are in a district, the more difficult it is to lower the insurance rating. But again, the goal in Nash County has been to get the majority of our departments to that Class 6. And I think we're awful close. We have 3 that are not a 6. Okay, yeah, 3 that are below a 6 or above a 6.
Okay.
Other questions? Scott, you may mention the rule lines cannot be changed after they were established, but some years ago, we did some changing somewhere down in the Silver Lake area. Was that to do with insurance districts and not fire districts?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
So what I mean by that is that you can't change the taxing authority of that, of those lines or those districts. So for insurance purposes, we can change those all we want. And of course, we do. When we build a new station, we have to change them. When we build a substation, we have to change them because of the travel distances between. But the rural fire protection district remains in existence. So a perfect example of that is there's still a very, very small Stony Creek rural fire protection district.
Right.
Now, you as a commissioner certainly have the choice of how you utilize the funds that are collected in that district. And you do, in my opinion, the perfect thing. You split that between the 2 fire departments that serve that existing area.
Right. So what we did down in that area, we took an area and took it from one station to a station outside of the district, if I remember right. And I probably don't remember right, but down in the Silver Lake area, somewhere in that area, we did something like
How
that,
long ago are you talking?
probably 7 or 8 years ago.
We actually took some district that was served by a department outside of Nash County and moved it into a district in Nash County because Bailey built a substation.
That could have been well what it was.
I think that's what it was.
Okay, I think you're right. So it was served by a district outside
That's
of Nash
correct.
County. We moved it back in Nash County.
That's correct.
I got it, okay. Other questions, Scott? Mr. Outlaw?
I have none. Very good
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you, sir. All right, that was item number 5. We'll move to item number 6, which is Middlesex Corporate Center, grant application. I'll call on Patsy McGee at this time. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. In your packet, you should find a memo, a resolution, and a map of Middlesex Corporate Parkway. which is primarily, Middlesex Corporate Parkway is primarily a gravel road that needs to be upgraded to provide access to a number of the economic development sites. Several economic development clients are committed or have considerable interest in locating within Middlesex Corporate Center, which would result in private investment and job creation. As a result, we request authorization to submit a grant application to the North Carolina Department of Transportation Economic Development Program to complete construction of Middlesex Corporate Parkway. The total cost of Phase 2 of construction in Middlesex Corporate Center, which includes road and sewer improvements, is projected to be $2,741,640 at this time. Golden Leaf has committed $500,000 for sewer improvements, and the North Carolina Department of Commerce Industrial Development Fund has committed $1,681,230 for sewer and road improvements. We're applying to NCDOT for $400,000 in EDP funds, and the remainder of the project would be funded with county funds. Our recommendation is to affirm and ratify the resolution in your packet.
Questions from Ms. McGee on this item? Seeing none, I'll call for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
And we are approving the ratification of the resolution.
Right.
Okay? Motion by Commissioner Combs, there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign?
Yes.
Did you,
If all those grants were successful, the county would have to come up with about $161,000 out of our fund.
It's over, a little over 100,000. I didn't bring that figure with me, but for some of the industrial clients, the sewer needs are being reviewed, and so I don't have those updated figures yet based on commitments of those companies, so it could be higher than that, but, you know, we'll do what we can to seek other funding to help with that, but I'm not sure yet about that.
and Patsy has prepared me a couple of folders that I asked her for, and I am meeting with our DOT representative, Melvin Mitchell, at 5:30 this afternoon to go over all this stuff with him as well, so he'll hopefully look out for it when it goes to the DOT board, because that's who approves the grant. Any other questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Next item is item number 7. It is the Governor's Highway Safety Program position approval, and I'll call on Major Wilson, I think. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, board. Thank y'all for having me. Give me an opportunity to talk about the Governor's Highway Safety Grant. In Nash County, we are actually, the county itself ranks 11th in fatalities over the last 5 years, and 19th in total collisions. And when we look at young drivers killed, we're ranked 18th in the state, and also 12th in alcohol-related fatalities throughout the entire state. So with that, we previously had 2 members assigned to the Governor's Highway Safety Program. That grant ended. We maintained those individuals for 1 year, like the grant had asked that we do. We looked at all the calls that we get for service. We have citizen complaints, if not daily, weekly, of concerns about speeding. We have traffic safety presentations, different things that we would like for people to be able to do and take care of. And in order to accomplish those and try to help reduce the fatalities and the overall injuries in Nash County, we have sought to see if we could obtain 4 members instead of 2 for the Governor's Highway Safety Program. And we have been awarded 4 if the board will approve it and if the county will approve it. So with that being the case, basically, the cost for the next fiscal year, the total amount of the project, they pay for the first year 85%, and the county pays 15%. And that's for personnel costs. That's also for the vehicles and the things that go in the vehicles, the cameras, radios, the outfitting of the cars itself. So the total cost for the first year would be $478,000 for everything, and the county's part of it would be $71,000. When I looked at that, because our fiscal year ends at the end of June, the total amount out of this year's budget would be $62,000, $62,354 that would be needed from the county to outfit 4 members for the, and that would be the 4 members for this position. Over the total life, because it would be a 3-year plan, and each year we have to apply for it, and if they approve it, then we would get it for 2 more additional years. If that was the case, it would be 75-25 on, at that point, it's just salary for the second year and 50-50 on the third year. So the total for 3 years that the county would pay to have 4 additional deputies on the highway to be able to do these other things that our other deputies are having to respond to citizen complaints and these other projects that go on. The total amount over 3 years that the county would pay would be $261,000, and the federal part of it, they would pay $723,000. So in essence, by obtaining 4 additional members, the federal government would pay the county $723,000 of those salaries and of that equipment over the 3 years. What we're asking for is these 4 deputies be allowed for the grant. I've already presented information to our county manager for her to look at as well. And so I have some paperwork I'll be glad to give to the board for you to look at. It's the resolution. And Chairman Davis, this is something that would need to be signed by you as a member of the board if y'all approve this. And I would like to give this to you, if I may approach and hand it to you.
To the clerk, if you would, Al. Anything else you want to say before I call
No,
for
sir.
questions?
I'll be glad to take any questions that the board may have.
I got a few, but questions, Mr. Belfield, go ahead.
These positions, when the grant money run out, you still want to maintain those positions?
We would like to be able to maintain those positions, but I suppose that's something after the grant runs out that we can talk about. I would think over the next 3 years, we would probably want to add some more personnel to the, more deputies to the road, and that would give us an opportunity to do that because they were already hired and already trained. But if not, I would think that when it comes to that point, through attrition, we could counterbalance that if need be, but we would like to ask to keep that. Yes, sir.
Is it possible other grant money would be out there that's...
We could. Typically, what they require is that once the grant is over, after 3 years, you have to maintain it for 1 year. You can't have a grant. You can't go from one grant immediately to another. So after 12 months, you can reapply, and that's what we've done this time. And then they can look at it, and then based upon totality and the cost, they can see if they can give us additional personnel, which could continue on. But for 1 year, we would be required to maintain it for 1 year.
Okay, other questions?
What is the primary focus of this group?
Okay, so the primary focus is to focus on basically going into the school zones. So by having 4, we would have 2 that would work like daytime. They would rotate, of course, and 2 working the second shift. And the daytime shift would focus on our school zones, working around our schools. And the night shift would focus on the high traffic areas and focus on alcohol enforcement and checkpoints and so forth. We would also be focusing on going in and giving traffic safety talks to any civic groups, any of our youth, things of that nature there as well. So basically going out, being proactive, trying to get people to slow down, working these citizen complaints that we have, and we have them come in, like I said, not daily, we have several of them come in every week, and we assign it out, and our patrol deputies, they can go to those areas and work, but they can't work everything. They can't be at the school zones, they can't work all those things all at the same time. So with that, these guys can focus on those events and focus on these school zones and try to keep the traffic basically in control the best that we can. And I know the Highway Patrol does an excellent job, but they're limited in the number that they can do as well. So this is a way that we can try to reduce the collisions. Average in Nash County, 27 people get killed in car wrecks every year. So over the last 5 years, it was 156 that were killed. And out of that, you're averaging 3 young drivers, which are 18 and under, being killed a year on average. So with that being the case, we feel that if we had this team, then we could actually deploy folks and strategically, and I would ensure that they are given a set agenda each month, that they have to fill in certain things and make sure that they are actually working in areas that need to be worked and handling the complaints that come in. So they wouldn't just be riding around just wherever they wanted to go. There'd be it'd be a strategic approach to it. You're welcome.
Other questions? Alan, I recall this coming up in the early part of our budget discussions this year, and it didn't get put in the budget, and I think the reason was the grant didn't get approved. So it got approved after the budget was approved.
That's right.
Is that what we got?
Yes, sir. That's it. So the grant initially was not approved, and then we went, and this was after we'd already talked to county manager, and then we went and we talked to them, and we explained exactly what we planned on doing with the grant, what we planned on doing with the personnel, and then after that, roughly about a month ago, they said that they were considering the grant and that we were more than likely going to be approved with it. A gentleman came down about 2.5, 3 weeks ago, looked at a grant, forwarded it back in, and then they said they were going to approve it, and he sent me the paperwork to be filled out if it gets approved by the county.
Blunt question, but do you think you can fill these 4 positions?
Sir, we have somebody right now recruiting full-time just for this particular month. In October, they're going straight back to the road because we currently have, with these 4 positions, plus the other positions, we've got somewhere around 5 openings, and then we got the other 4 to add to it. So to answer that question, I would hope so, particularly with the, where we've been gracious enough to have the increase in our starting salary and the senior and master deputies in place. So right now, it looks positive with some of the comments that he's made back. We've had him going around, traveling around, talking to the different basic law enforcement classes and so forth, trying to plant those seeds so that we can harvest some good recruits to come in.
Okay.
So to answer that question, it's hopeful, but I can't say for certain.
Of course, if we don't hire them, we don't spend the money, do we?
Well, no, if you don't hire them, you don't spend the money, and you'll be getting money back. So in essence, with the 4 positions, 2 of the people were still on that traffic team that we were using, so that's 2. So really, it's taking 2 right now to fulfill the grant. So until we fill those 4 positions, the county really will be getting reimbursed for the people that we already have on board.
But those 2 we're already paying full freight on.
Correct.
Okay.
And so in essence, I guess, answer Mr. Bellfield's question. Mr. Bellfield, 2 of them are already been approved. So at the end of the grant, it's only adding 2 more in essence. Because 2 of them have already been approved and we put them on.
I know you made it clear for the first grant, we had 3 years, and then we had a 4th year where we were required to keep them at our full freight. Is that the same case here again?
To my understanding, it is, yes, sir.
But your figures reflected 3 years, though, I think.
It is, it's 3 years, and then on the 4th year, So you're correct. Over the 3 years, that was my figures, then you would incur the entire personnel costs. And at the current salary, and of course, next year,
Sure.
whatever the salary are for the members on it, we could always request that salary
Sure.
to cover those members that's on the team, because they may be at a higher salary. So the personnel cost just now is $252,000 for 4 people. So that's what you would be talking about for the 4th year, that we would be required to maintain.
Right. So I would need to add that total cost to this total, 261,000. I'd need to add that 4th year to it to know our total cost
Correct.
with the committee.
Correct. If you wanted to know the 4-year cost, yes, sir,
Right.
that's correct.
But we are committed for that 4th year.
Yes, sir. As far as I understand, we're committed to the 4th year,
Okay. All right.
just like we would be before.
I think my last question is probably for the manager, or this request is for us to approve the request. So have you blessed it, and have we got the money to pay it with?
Yes, sir. And Major Wilson and I have met and gone through the grant requirements, have gone through the budget, and have agreed that at this point in time, there's not going to be a request for a budget amendment. We were going to work with our existing budget that's in place. Hopefully, we'll be able to finish out the year without adding to that. Feel pretty confident about that. But yes, I do approve this request.
And Mr. Chairman, I may add, each year, when we apply for the 2nd year and the 3rd year, I have to come back before you and ask the very same thing. And if the budget doesn't allow for that at that point, then the county would have the option of saying, we're not going to move forward with the 2nd or 3rd year if the budget didn't allow.
You know it's going to get harder each year, right?
What's that?
You know it's going to be more difficult each year because your percentage goes up. Our percentage goes up.
Oh, yes, sir.
I'm somewhat kidding
Yes,
with you,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it goes to 25% and then 50%.
While the manager's talking, why is the lady in the back shaking her head? I'm kidding. I'm just trying to word the manager, that's all. Don't pay me no mind.
Thank you.
Any more questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion for approval or denial.
Make-
Have a motion by Commissioner Wilkins, second by Commissioner Combs. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Motion carries, sir.
All right, thank you very much.
Let me make one statement since you were here. Yesterday, I happened to have to work at Red Oak Park for a little while doing some staking and witnessed one of your deputies in full uniform playing basketball with a young man. I don't know whether she was on duty with us or on duty for the town of Red Oak. One or the other, I'm sure. But I just felt, listening to her from where I was working, that I could hear what was said on both sides, and seemed like a very excellent way, because we've had some issues there on that basketball court in some time back, but it was an excellent way for her to be engaged with those young men playing basketball, and I think I got close enough to see her badge, maybe said Brandy Burden, possibly. Does that ring a bell?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But I was just very impressed that she was doing that in full uniform and engaged with the people out there. And by the way, she did win the game too. She told me after it was over with. So
Very good.
I was just very impressed at how she went about and the method she used to, I think, improve the situation out there at Red Oak Park. I'm sure that was part of her game plan. Apparently, I don't know that I've ever met the young lady before.
Right.
Quite frankly, I didn't introduce myself because I was so dirty and all. I didn't really want to meet her at that point in time. But it was very impressive to witness anyway.
Well, thank you for that. I'll pass that along. And
You don't need to do that. I was actually telling you, quite frankly, but whatever you want to do. it's fine.
yes, sir. I would like to let her know that that made a difference in what you saw, and I appreciate that and appreciate her efforts.
Well, it really made a difference in the young man because I spoke to him a minute after she left, and he was very impressed himself.
Good.
Thank
Very
you, sir.
well. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is item number 8, which is a fireworks permit approval, and I'll call on Brent Fisher at this time.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Good evening, sir.
Sounds good, thank
Good
you.
evening.
You look like a lawyer sitting back there. I was wondering who you were there for a moment.
Taking it all in.
Yes, sir.
So I have before you approval of a fireworks display permit. The Nash County Fire Marshal's Office has received a permit application to conduct a fireworks display at an event on October 1st, 2022 at the 50th Annual Spring Hope Pumpkin Festival in Spring Hope, North Carolina. The operational permit requester is the contractor Kevin Wetzel of Wetzel Pyrotechnics of 125 Eagleton Circle, Moyock, North Carolina. The permit application and accompanying documents are in order, and a copy of the insurance bond with Nash County as an additional insured is attached. North Carolina General Statute 14-410 requires the Board of Commissioners give approval prior to the fire marshal issuing the permit. And the Nash County Fire Marshal's Office recommends approval of the operational permit for Kevin Wetzel doing business as Wetzel Pyrotechnics.
Questions from the board? Seeing none, entertain a motion for approval of the request.
Move for approval.
Moved by Commissioner Belfield, second by Commissioner
Leggett.
Leggett. Questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank y'all.
Item number 9 is debris removal stream flow rehabilitation program grant project. I'll call on Ms. Wood at this time to make the request. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Are you trying to get me in trouble with the county manager?
Always have a tendency to try that and leave.
The first item, as you indicated, is the stream flow rehabilitation program grant project ordinance. The North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, Division of Soil and Water Conservation, has offered a debris removal grant contract totaling $254,569 to Nash County for debris removal in Swift Creek. This grant is referred to as Stream Flow Rehabilitation Assistance Program. And as part of this debris removal, the debris will need to be cabled, mulched, or chipped away from the floodplain. The action that I'm requesting from the board is if the commissioners are in agreement with the grant, to accept the grant, giving the county manager the authority to sign and accept the terms of the agreement. And after that, I have a grant project ordinance attached, and I'm requesting approval of the grant project ordinance.
Okay, question from Commissioner on this request? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Move for approval.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw, second by Commissioner Leggett. Any questions on this item? I guess this is pretty similar to what we've been doing all along.
It is. We will have to do, we will have to put out this one for bid. It's a different type, so this one will go out to bid.
Different type being in method or different type in monies?
I believe it's a different method and also a little bit, the different source of funding. So where we were
Okay.
adding on before and using the
Right.
same agreement, this one
Cool.
we have to do separately.
Okay, all right. Any questions on the motion? All in
Is
favor?
this going to be administered by the Nash Soil and Water Conservation?
It is.
They're going to be in charge of it.
Yes, sir.
I think they have all of them, Mr. Belfield. I think they have on all of them.
Well,
Other questions?
nope.
All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. And your general fund grant project ordinance number 10?
Okay, so Nash County has been awarded $775,000 from the North Carolina Office of State Budget and Management General Fund as listed in the 2022 Appropriations Act. The agreement is effective July 1st, 2022 and terminates June 30th, 2024. Funds are for various directed grants, including Nash County Sheriff's Office, with pass-through amounts approved for Nash County Volunteer Fire Departments, Rocky Mount Wilson Airport, and designated local nonprofits. The pass-through funding will be available based on signed contract agreements with Nash County government. The individual grant recipients and funding amounts, I can detail for you. Nash County Sheriff's Office has received $150,000, and they plan to use this to assist with the purchase of a Bearcat to be used for tactical and emergency response. The volunteer fire departments, 15 have received, or will receive $20,000, and theirs is to make sure that they maintain, each district maintains standards for the North Carolina State Fire Marshal's Office. The next one is for Rocky Mount Wilson Airport. They are to receive $100,000, and that is to help design hangar space. Strategic Twin County Educational Partnership is to receive $100,000, and this is to improve career awareness and work-based learning experience for youth through teacher professional development. City of Refuge Foundation Phase 1 Mission Field Park is to receive $50,000, and this is to help develop Phase 1 of the Mission Field House through developing a professional site plan or helping with the professional site plan. And Ripe Revival is to receive $75,000 to revive communities through food and farm growth and a mobile market. They're looking at a community farm to be located at Nash Community College.
Okay. I know when we first got word of this, I don't think you knew much about it, and I didn't either, and I don't think we either one particular liked the way it was done, but have you got comfortable with it?
Well, what we'll have to do, each of the individual organizations will have to have a contract with the Nash County for the pass-through funding. So in that way, we'll have the agreement in place of what they'll use the funds for. We'll be held accountable for their use of funds through the state auditor. And so we want to make sure by doing this agreement, they will have everything documented in order to provide the funding to them.
So basically what the General Assembly done was gave this money to these individuals, then they gave us the money for us to tend to.
That's correct.
I guess it's better to not get the money at all, but I'm sure you would have appreciated some upfront involvement in it, I would think, but it may be the trend moving forward. But you've got comfortable, since we're responsible for the money, and you got things in place that we're gonna get reports from these people before they get the money, I guess.
We are putting together a contract which the state actually provided us a sample contract
Okay.
to put in place. So they'll have to, we could pay the invoices for them, but we have, if they have a project, we can pay those, they could send them to us, but we have to have the documentation before they get the funding. We have to know that the funds have been used in accordance with their plan.
I believe the second item, if I'm not mistaken, some of these checks have already been given out by the fire marshal. I may be wrong.
I have not, from our office, we have not distributed any checks.
Okay, that may have been some other kind of money then, must have been. Okay, any other questions from commissioners on this item?
I see the sheriff's office has identified what they want to do with the amount that, what about the others? Have they said what that's listed on here?
Yes, so each organization we reached out to them, the assistant county manager assisted with that, and they gave, I just gave a brief indication of what they were doing with the funding, and part of that, so they tell us their scope of work, and then we have performance measures that they provided to us, which will be part of the agreement. But if you have one specific, for example, the Rocky Mount Wilson Airport is looking to design additional hangar space, so they would look at hiring a professional for that development with their funding. The fire districts are looking to make sure that each department maintains a standard of performance that the state fire marshal requires, and that would be a certification process that they would have to go through, that they would all receive certification. So there's performance measures that would be put in place to make sure they use the funding as they've indicated.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make it known that I conferred with our attorney. I sit on the board of Strategic Twin Counties Education Partnership.
Correct.
And there is no conflict. in my voting for this, and I do want to say that money is much needed. STEP could really use that for career awareness, so.
Thank you for pointing that out. Other questions, comments? Entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wilkins, there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Outlaw. Questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda would be, do you have more?
I do. I have
sorry.
one other one. This is also an Office of State Budget and Management grant awarded to Nash County Sheriff's Office. This is actually a SCIF grant, which is the state capital, from the State Capital and Infrastructure Fund. They've been granted $150,000. The grant is effective for July 1st, 2022, and terminates June 30th, 2024. Grant funds are for capital improvements or equipment in the Sheriff's Office, and the Sheriff's Office plans to use the funds to assist with the purchase of the Bearcat to be used for tactical and emergency response.
So that's two $150,000.
That is two $150,000, one with the SCIF and one from the general fund of the state. In addition, they also received $84,000 from this appropriation in 2021.
That we already approved.
That's correct.
Right, okay. Any questions on that? Entertain a motion for approval.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Combs, motion, second. Second, Commissioner Wilkins. Questions on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed by like sign? I'm sorry, do you have a question?
Wood, is there a total now on how much is in the Bearcat Fund?
The Bearcat available for for use of Bearcat through state grant money is around $384,000, a little over $384,000.
All right.
And so they have a quote in place that's actually less than that. So it would all be funded by state grant.
Yeah, I thought it was about that much. Thank you.
I think actually Senator Barnes got one of those $150,000, and the House member from the southern part of the county got the other $150,000, the way it shook out, as I understand it. Okay, you mentioned when we were, or did we already do that? When we were on the stream cleaning, you mentioned a budget amendment coming up. It's later, okay, I got it, thank you. You want to go ahead and do that while you were there, or have you got numerous budget amendments?
No, I just didn't want to mess up the agenda you had put in place.
Why don't you go ahead and approve that while you're there?
Okay, well, we'll go back to the stream debris. That is attached if you want to, I think we did approve the grant ordinance, maybe we didn't?
We did.
Okay. So I have 3 budget amendments for the board to consider.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, the first one is with senior services. Additional HCCBG funding was received from the Upper Coastal Plain Council of Government after June 30th, 2022 for the fiscal year 2022 program funding. This budget amendment is presented to budget the additional funds and allocations to the agencies. It's an additional $22,287. No county funds are required. The Sheriff's Office, this next item is with the Sheriff's Office. This budget amendment is to reappropriate Nash County's portion of a joint grant application with the City of Rocky Mount for the 2021 Justice Assistance Grant. It's $15,564. No county funds are required. And the last item I have is with the revaluation fund. This amendment is to budget additional funds to cover contracted services for fiscal year 2023 with Pioneer Appraisal. Pioneer Appraisal began the revaluation process for Nash County during the current fiscal year and will be billing us monthly. During our original budget, we budgeted $200,000 just for the current fiscal year, but we need to add on to that. The anticipated expenditures for the current fiscal year are $632,059. And this will cover, the $432,059 will cover those expenses for the current year. And all of that is currently available in the revaluation fund balance.
Okay. And we already approved that contract with the
That is
firm.
correct.
Okay, gotcha. All right, any questions on the 3 budget amendments? Entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Commissioner Outlaw, second by Commissioner Belfield. Questions on the motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Motion carries as well. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the added item 11A, which is a grant for the Southern Nash Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant Study. I call on Mr. Boone at this time. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. First of all, I want to say I appreciate the board's flexibility, being willing to consider amending the agenda to include this item. The resolution that you have in front of you is basically a resolution of support for a grant application to the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality for a planning grant to assist the county and the towns of Bailey and Middlesex with evaluating the feasibility, although we're already kind of in the midst of kind of a feasibility study, looking at alternatives that would go into a greater level of detail for a regional wastewater plant to serve the southern part of Nash County. And in order to provide you a little context, you may recall that the county previously applied for a grant, a merger, regionalization, and feasibility study grant to look at this very issue. And in a nutshell, the intent of the study was to look at near-term, mid-term, and long-term strategies to address wastewater needs in the southern part of Nash County. And I think the board is aware of some of the challenges that we face in that area, and particularly the towns that face in that area, more so maybe the town of Bailey than the town of Middlesex. But we received that grant. We applied for it in the fall. We received it, I believe it was in late winter. We actually kicked off the work on the merger, regionalization, and feasibility study, MRF for short, which is much easier to say. In late April, we've been working on that for the better part of 5 months. And again, the strategy there is to look at near-term, mid-term, long-term strategies to address wastewater needs in the southern part of the county. Certainly, a regional wastewater plant would be one of the longer-term strategies just because the amount of planning, permitting, and investment that will be required to pursue such a plant. So this grant would be anticipated, the grant application will be for $400,000 that would look into that issue in a greater degree of detail. So we've looked at it kind of conceptually as part of our MRF study, but working in hand with the state from a permitting perspective, if the county and the towns, and we've also had some engagement with the town of Spring Hope about this issue, if those partners were to move forward, where would be the best location, and what will be the cost involved, and you would have to look at management structure if it is a partnership. So the resolution you have in front of you is effectively to support that grant application. So we're still a long ways off from ever moving forward on something like this. This is really just to give us more information in order to make a better, more informed decision if this is something that the county and the towns would want to move forward with. What would it look like? What would it cost? What would be the ongoing operational and maintenance expenses? So it's really getting more information, just kind of drilling down on this idea a little bit further to get more details, more information that the county could use to make a more informed decision. So that's kind of the stage that we are in the process. And this is an opportunity certainly we had in front of us to pursue some grant funding. It would not require a match. This will be the second round of funding. In the first round, the county applied for the funds that will be used for Phase 2 of the Northern Ash Water Sewer District, $12.8 million. We also received a couple of $150,000 AIA grants. This is a second round. Those applications are due September 30th. And this is a resolution similar to ones that the county's approved in the past for those previous grant applications. So I said a lot to say. Again, this is the next step, if you will, in the process of looking at alternatives to address wastewater needs in the southern part of the county. Does it commit the county to anything other than if we accept a grant to move forward with the study? But it's really, in my estimation, more about getting more information to make a better informed decision about a long-term strategy to address wastewater needs in southern Nash County. With that, I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Boone, I think one other important thing, and you kind of sort of said it, but what studies we have done with the original grant, we have learned that we're very limited with our industrial recruitment and industries to bring to the southern part of Nash County without some additional source of sewer other than what we've identified and what's available per gallons through those two processes that we've identified. So we really got to have something for long term if we're going to continue putting industries in the southern part of the county.
Right, so that's, clearly that's, as far as the county's motivation, its interest in looking at near-term, mid-term, long-term strategies. And again, we're talking about a longer-term strategy this afternoon. If the county is interested in additional industrial development in the southern part of the county to bring jobs to the southern part of the county, that is going to require infrastructure to address wastewater. And as it stands today, Middlesex relies on the city of Raleigh, who owns and operates most of the wastewater infrastructure in Wake County. And the town of Bailey is exploring, and although it has some of its own treatment capacity, but you're aware of some of the challenges they face, they're exploring an option maybe to discharge to the city of Wilson. That conversation is ongoing, but as the chairman alluded to, the opportunities we have there are very limited. Certainly, we are wrestling with that issue today as we develop the Middlesex Corporate Center, and we certainly don't anticipate, although that's a decision the commissioners would make, that Middlesex Corporate Center will be our last foray into industrial development. Again, if we're going to bring those jobs, we've got to have the water, we've got to have the sewer infrastructure to support that type of development. And this would be one tool that the county could possibly pursue to address that need.
Questions of Mr. Boone on this item? Seeing none, entertain a motion for approval of the resolution.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw, seconded by Commissioner Wilkins. Questions on the motion? Dan, Sue, you got any questions? Good. Southern part of the county?
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Okay. All right, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next item is item 11B. And 11B has been on the agenda, off the agenda, and back on the agenda just today, I think, but it involves a project with the school system to support Sound River Grant, and I will call on Pat McGee to start the process here on this item.
Yes, thank you for
And
adding
that it
it.
was something you had at your desk when you got here.
Yes, so you should have at your seat a memo and a resolution. And I wanted to introduce today the Executive Director of Sound Rivers Incorporated, which is Heather Deck, who's with me and will help answer any questions you may have. The North Carolina Division of Water Infrastructure will award approximately $82 million in American Rescue Plan Act funding for stormwater projects through its competitive funding process from the newly created Local Assistance for Stormwater Infrastructure Investments, or I guess it's LAZY program. Funds are available for cities, counties, regional councils of government, and nonprofit partners for planning and/or construction projects. And a nonprofit agency like Sound Rivers is eligible to apply in partnership with a local governmental unit. Sound Rivers is a nonprofit, and they propose to apply for this funding to plan for stormwater infrastructure repair and retrofit projects at some of the Nash County public schools. So this will include a stormwater assessment and water quality reports for eligible school campuses. The reason we have to be involved is they request a resolution from the county to include with the application. Nash County Public Schools Director of Maintenance Shannon Davis informed Scott Rogers that he does support this effort. We had some back and forth this morning on whether they wanted to be engaged, but they definitely do. And so we ask that you approve this resolution of support for a NCDEQ Division of Water Infrastructure funding application by Sound Rivers to benefit Nash County Public Schools. Have any questions? We'd both be happy to try to answer them.
All right, questions of Patsy or Heather on this item? Could you introduce Heather? I will
Yes.
have a question.
Come on up here.
Right then. The only question I'm going to have, Patsy, if we were to get this grant, it is going to be administered by the school system and not the county, is that correct?
It is going to be administered by Sound Rivers.
By Sound Rivers? So the county's only involvement will be to approve a resolution in support?
That's correct. And then part of the application, just to show that there's an existing partnership, it does require us to have someone from the county listed as another project contact. And Ms. McGee has agreed to do that. And just to reiterate, this is an existing partnership we actually have with Dr. Ellis and the county school system. We actually have a current grant to do some work on a few campuses. This would actually provide us additional funding to do probably all of the different school campuses. And it's phase one. So it's not actually construction. This is just a planning grant. It's actually to provide assessments and find areas where we can do some improvements for stormwater, areas where they may have flooding or they may have erosion or things, and we bring in engineers to do that. And so it is an existing partnership, and this was an opportunity that came up for us to go ahead and apply for funding to expand the current program.
What is the grant amount? Or do we know?
It'll
What are we
approximately,
applying?
yeah, just like the gentleman before, the application is due the end of the month, and we're going to provide a draft before we would ever apply for folks, but it's going to be in the order of about $100,000.
When I looked up support of Sound Rivers, I saw something, you have done some work for Nash Community College?
That's correct.
Okay,
Yep.
could you tell us, I think I know what that is, but would you tell us what it is so the board
Sure.
would be familiar with it?
It's a very similar, so that was phase two of this existing program. We work with over 24 schools, both K through 12 schools and community colleges, to do this very project. It's a campus stormwater program. So at Nash County, we produced a report that provided opportunities to improve some of their stormwater. So in part, it's to repair some existing problems. So we did a big, long swale project. If you drive in on one of the main ways, you saw that they had some severe erosion that was near the roadway. And this, we got grant funding, and so Sound Rivers works as a nonprofit, and it's all grant funded, to repair that swale. Also near one of the main buildings in the front, we put in a bioretention cell, which is essentially
That's
an
what I
engineered,
noticed.
rain garden. And we actually did a few of those. And then we also installed about 17,000 gallons of cisterns, sort of rainwater harvesting that their facilities crew now uses. So they actually use rainwater to then irrigate most of their plants across the community college so that they don't have to use water, and that can save money over time.
What was the word you called that again?
There's cisterns or rainwater harvesting. It's basically a big, I think some of them are in the order of 2,500 to 5,000 gallon tanks that are connected to the storm drains on the buildings that capture rainwater that can then be reused for things like irrigation.
You're going to make me go back and study some more.
Yeah, we actually completed one at Epiphany School in New Bern that irrigates their ball fields now, so they can use rainwater to irrigate their.
And you collected in underground tanks?
These are actually above ground.
Those were above ground, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Any other questions on this item?
I got one.
Yes, sir.
Does this repair and retrofit apply to all the schools?
As far as
And if not, which schools are you specifically targeting?
Right, it's, part of this is in conversation with Dr. Ellis and with Mr. Davis about which schools that they think are in most need. There is probably enough funding to do all of them, and again, this is just a planning report.
Well, you said this is like phase one.
Yes, yeah, and so the whole point of this is to not only provide recommendations on ways that they can improve, but also provide opportunities for retrofits that actually can also improve water quality. In other words, rainwater harvesting is one way, doing the rain gardens is another. But essentially, this report will be a way to have shovel-ready projects to go after future grant funding if the schools so desire to do that.
So at the point the system splits, then the schools that are in Edgecombe County that would be in phase two, would Edgecombe County apply for that, or are they on board with this, or?
So this is just for the Nash County schools with the superintendent
Well,
here.
we have schools in Edgecombe County.
Okay, then I think at this point, we would probably work out, we could work with the Division of Water Infrastructure to answer
I
that
just don't want to
question.
get something started that once we split, that Edgecombe County is not aware that they would be picking up potentially a subsequent phase.
Right, and again, this is not really, I don't know if you have anything you want to respond. This is not in any way requiring any type of future construction or anything that's required. It'll be voluntary for what they want to do in the future.
Okay.
Yeah, so in this instance, I think if we would just work with the Nash County schools because it's what we would have a resolution for
Okay.
From the county.
And I think it would be an option for Edgecombe County to work with Sound Rivers to do the same kind of thing if they wanted to.
Well, I just don't
And
want them to
Edgecombe
get caught
County
off
Public
guard.
Schools.
Okay.
I think, Heather, what you need to leave here with is the thought that there are 4 schools in Nash County school systems that will most likely not be in there 2 years from now.
Gotcha.
So if you'll get those identified and keep that in mind.
We will do that. Thank you for that information.
Sure. All right, any other questions? Entertain a motion for approval of the resolution.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw, is there a second? Second by Commissioner Combs. Questions on the motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Thank you, ma'am, and I hope we didn't start you up here today, turn you around, then turn you back around. I'm not sure. Just observation of some of the stuff we are doing today, I think it's probably going to be something we probably need to get used to. There is a tremendous amount of grant money out there, and it comes from all different ways, through all different organizations, and what I think this board needs to do is to make sure we know who's in charge of the grant, who's got to administer the grant, and who's got to be responsible for the audit on the funds when they come in, and that we don't overburden our finance department. And like this one, it will not be on us. So I think we'll see some of these, hopefully, every month. But that's really what I think we need to be cautious about, is who's got to be responsible for where the money goes moving forward. All right, that is item number 11B. We took care of item number 12C, so we're now on item 13. I'll turn it over to Commissioner Outlaw.
Thank you, Chairman. We'll go into committee reports now from individual commissioners, starting with District 1, Commissioner Arrington.
Okay, I attended the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council meeting last Thursday. And normally what we do, we have a number of different organizations that try to contribute to juvenile prevention and care. So that meeting, as always, goes very well with the presentation from different organizations. Nothing major. So that's my report. I did not meet with the Caregivers Advisory Board.
Any questions for Commissioner Arrington? Hearing none, District 2, Commissioner Belfield.
You'll start out, Tar River Transit. We haven't met since June, but we met in June to approve application for a grant to administer the Tar River Transit program in National Edgecombe, City of Rocky Mountain, National Edgecombe County. That's basically to run the operation, and the operation is run by a private company that under contract. And the city is responsible for overseeing and making sure that the private contractor adheres to the contract and doing what they're supposed to do. And the contract is bidded out each year. Basically, it's the same company that pretty much comes up with their best offer. Upper Coastal Plain Council of Government, we passed our budget. Before I get into that, I'll talk about some other things that we changed. There's change in the policy revision where the purchase contract with less than $10,000, the individual could do that, but they only could purchase up to $250. That has been amended so they can, individually, they can purchase up to $750 and then turn in their expenditure receipts. They call that micro purchase amendment. And we also passed the fiscal year budget. Total budget for the Upper Coastal Plain Council of Government is $13,171,920. Breaking it down, the general fund, $213,899. Workforce development, $5,643,707. Aging department, $5,473,248. And the planning department, it's, let me make sure where it planning. Okay, planning department, $1,669,866. All of that coming to a total of $13,171,920. The budget is pretty close to what it was the past fiscal year. That's my report. I don't have anything to report on the farmer's market. And Commissioner Arrington reported on JCPC.
Just a comment on JCPC, you've got 2 commissioners with that on their agenda. Maybe you could minimize that and just have it on one of them, and one could report, just showing the other as a member.
Well, it's been.
I direct that to the county manager.
Yeah, when Ms. Richardson and I were on there, it's been me making a report.
That'd be fine.
But it's fine with me with Commissioner Arrington making the report.
I'll let
So
the chairman make that judgment.
I have no problem with him changing that.
Thank you, Mr. Belfield. Any questions for Mr. Belfield? Hearing none, District 3, Commissioner Cone.
Health and Human Services Board did meet August the 25th. We re-elected Dr. Mike Johnson as chairman of that board. We had a report from Veteran Services. He said for the month of July, they had 89 walk-ins into their office. They're busy. And that's good that we've got that office here in this building that our county, our people can come to. They hired one new staff member that we approved in the budget. They have to do a lot of training. That helps keep them busy too. Then Amy reported from Department of DSS, and one thing she talked about is they're on an improvement plan now with the state, which most other counties are too, I think, because they ain't up to where they're supposed to be because of COVID and everything, set all that stuff back. One thing she said, they hire people and then they get trained and they go somewhere else because they can go to another county, not necessarily for more pay, but for a lesser workload. Bill reported to us on the COVID. Just so you know, commissioners get this report, but in the month of August, the 4 weeks it averaged, it ranged from 290 new cases a week down to 191, and not necessarily in that order. 1 week they come down, next week they go up. So it's still here. They have started a second round of encouraging people, or it's time for people to get that next booster shot. So they're busy in the clinic. So if you can't get it that day, bear with them because they need some help over there too. So, but that second round or third round or whatever it is, that booster shot has started us.
The fifth shot.
Yeah, fifth shot. He updated us a little bit on you know, the new animal control facility, that ground's been broke. and-
Pet connection.
Pet connection, well, it says animal control version. I got that, pet connection, yes, sir. That's about all from that. The Agriculture Advisory Board had a meeting, what day was it, 12th, last week. Anyway, had a lot of participation there from different people on that board, a bigger than normal attendance, I think. But they talked about the land use plan and how it was being implemented, and the desire that we need the voluntary ag district to be updated and made a part of that land use plan. That voluntary ag district now has 211 districts with 9,297 acres in the traditional tract. It has it has 61 enhanced district tracts with 2,366 farms in there. And one thing they kind of emphasized was that we consider supporting county easement programs to purchase development rights on agricultural land and some other things that I think has already been sent to the committee for the committee's consideration. Trillium did meet on July the 26th. The committee had to evaluate. Dave Peterson was our big thing. He's the senior regional director, and y'all have all met him. He's been here. Dave's a dedicated person to what he does, and of course that evaluation was passed with flying colors, you know, because everybody knows Dave is committed to his job. That's the biggest thing that we had at that meeting. And the Economic Development Alliance has not met yet, but the first meeting is October 25th at 10:30. That's all I got.
Any questions for Commissioner Combs?
Yes. The Agriculture Advisory Board, have they expressed or discussed about agricultural zoning here in the county?
Not, you mean having specific agricultural zones?
Yeah, zoning of agricultural land, maybe from agriculture to, let's see what word I want to say. But anyway, rezoning for development, housing development.
The way I understand this new rezoning, it's zoned agricultural or residential. And it's still, that's on the development plan. That is not zoning. We're not changing the zoning at this time.
Well, I was
You're
just
not
wondering
changing
if
the
they
zone.
were concerned about farming land
Sure they are. I mean, you know, they're concerned about,
turned into development.
I think that was the point he was making, Mr. Belfield, where they expressed looking at the agricultural volunteer district.
Yeah, I know that.
Including that in some reference in the land development code, which we are headed towards doing that. But apparently they want to make some changes to that.
Yeah,
I don't know
well,
what
the
that
reason I asked the question, I know the Agricultural Advisory Board is under the umbrella of the Cooperative Extension Service, and I was just wondering if they had any concerns as it relates to zoning. And well, in what I use the word protection of agricultural land.
sure, I think everybody on that board is concerned to conserve agricultural land as far as it pertains to zoning or whatever, but that's not in the land development plan. Under the development plan now, you still maintain the right to do what you want to do with your own land. If you want to
Yeah,
farm it,
yeah,
or if you
well, I
want to
understand that, but I was just wondering, because it's separate from the planning.
One concern is, you know,
That's-
we do what we can to preserve farmland in Nash County. I mean, I think everybody agrees that we don't want it to be like Wake County, but we want room for growth. So it's a, you know, the only way you can really save it is to own it. And it's going to be a long time, I think, before we have a big problem with that. The development is not going to fill up Nash County in a year or two. But yeah, there's a lot of concern about what happens to the farmland.
Dan, I think that meeting was a joint meeting also, wasn't it? Would maybe why you had a large group there.
It was,
With normally ag, when I was on the ag committee, we always met by ourselves, but I think y'all had a joint meeting.
this is the Ag Advisory Board, and yeah, Soil and Water was invited, Farm Bureau Board was invited, Farm Service Advisory Board was invited, which that's, the Volunteer Ag District Board is one thing, and then the Farm Service Agency Advisory Board is another board.
Sure.
But everybody was invited to that meeting, all these people I just read.
Okay.
Dan, just a question regarding Human Services Board. Is that booster shot readily available?
Yes,
So you got ample supply?
yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions for Commissioner Cone? Okay, hearing none, just another comment to the manager and the chairman. Maybe the ED Alliance, we might look at consolidating that under one and let one commissioner report on that as well. And
You think we'll report on it?
well, I think that'd be up to the chairman and the manager. And also, we had our last Parks and Rec meeting. I think we discussed this, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Harrington, that we really need to be providing more information to the full board as to what's going on with Parks and Rec, particularly since we're kind of looking at expanding out and doing some things over in Commissioner Harrington's area. So maybe someone should be designated to report on the parks and recreation.
Is that a statement of volunteerism?
Do they have a board? Parks
We have
and
a-
Recreation?
We have a committee.
We have a committee.
We have a
Okay.
committee, yeah. But that's just something to think about. Maybe, the committee could
Might want to add
could
that.
think about it.
If they have a committee, they ought to make a report.
I agree.
Yeah.
And you will be getting a report from
Right.
the committee. We just initiated that report at our last meeting. Okay, District 4, Commissioner Leggett.
All right. So I've got two reports to give. The first is from Nash UNC Hospital. That board continues to meet monthly, and then various committees meet every other month or quarterly. First, I would like to report that the hospital has received 6 different awards for heart and stroke care from the American Heart Association and American Stroke Association. I think those can all be attributed to the training and responsiveness of the staff at the hospital here locally. Next, I'd like to report that the Planning and Facilities Committee at the hospital is continuing through their strategic planning process. During this current fiscal year, we're trying to complete the current strategic plan while working on a new plan which will take effect during fiscal year 2024. This fall, the hospital has 5 new doctor providers coming on board. 3 of those are with primary care, one of those being located in Middlesex. They also have a doctor coming on in hematology and oncology, and then another in urology. The hospital also wanted me to pass along that they did exceed their budget for fiscal year 2022 for operating budget. However, the investments budgets were below budget due to market performance. So thank you for that. And then the next report I have to pass along is from the Natural Resources Resilience Committee. That committee did meet in July 19th. I did provide a handout at each seat. It's got on here Golden Leak Foundation, Hurricane Matthew funds. This is a listing of projects that they've completed, and then on the second page, there is a map of those projects. So at the meeting, we reviewed various projects that were completed, debris removal projects, also overview of beaver management assistance programs that are going on in our county, which are administered by North Carolina Wildlife and USDA. Also, we were briefed on the upcoming STRAP program, or the Stream Flow Rehabilitation Assistance Program, which was on our agenda. And that work will be coming underway soon, and will begin in the Swift Creek locations in northern area of our county. And I'll be happy to take any questions if you have any, either now or after the meeting.
Any questions?
You said, did they add another physician at the clinic at Middlesex? They adding one, or is that?
I think they're replacing one.
Any other questions?
That's what.
Yeah, I have one. Commissioner Leggett, you have a Nash UNC Foundation, and it has a board,
Yes, sir.
and the hospital has a board.
Yes, sir.
And I noticed that the foundation also give grants. All those grants, do they get together when they decide what grants they gonna fund?
We don't per se.
What projects, I'm sorry, what
Yes, sir.
projects that they give grants?
We don't approve their projects. They approve their own projects and grants.
You don't work together in
We do
connection,
work together, and-
especially with healthcare.
Right. They do give reports to us, so we do know what they've got going on. They
Or
report
they
regularly
do
to
give you a
us.
report.
Yes, absolutely.
Is that verbally, or they just send you a report?
They do come report physically in our meetings.
Okay.
Any other questions?
One last question, Sue. The last field of the last doctor you named, I missed what it was neurology?
Urology, and his name is, let's see, Dr. Andrew Cowder.
Is that with a U or an N? No, the name of, what the kind of doctor he was, I'm sorry.
Urology.
Okay, thank you. That's what I couldn't quite. Appreciate it.
Any other questions? Commissioner
Will
Leggett?
the urologist, will he be full-time at the hospital, or will he have an office?
These are full-time providers.
Thank you, Commissioner Leggett. District 5,
Mr. Chairman, could I be excused for the rest of the meeting? I have to make a doctor's appointment.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
I don't see us voting on any other items on the agenda, and we will not have a closed session.
All right.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay. I'm gonna be right behind you shortly, sir.
District 5, the RPO, there's nothing significant to report there. Nash Community College Board of Trustees, I've got a handout that I'll provide to each commissioner, and that will give you an update on the CDL pad work that's going to take place next to the college. That total project, it's got the total budget for that project, it's got the timeline for that project, and to cut to the chase, and I'll give you a copy of this, the schedule would have it starting construction in the spring and completing in late fall of 2023. So if you have any questions on that after I hand it out to you, then just get back to me and let me know. On the broadband committee, you should have received a September update info and August committee minutes from Ms. McGee, and you should have also received PowerPoint slides, which were provided by Ms. McGee. So again, if you have any questions, just let us know, and we'll try to answer your questions. I do believe that our residential customer base is increasing, and that's a good thing. Any questions?
Commissioner Outlaw,
Yes,
does the town of Nashville fall under the MPO, the RPO, or?
MPO.
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 As a matter of fact, there are areas out in the county that fall under the MPO. It's not an exact science.
Okay.
I'll give you an example. Out at Highway 97 at Jack's Grocery, you would think that's RPO, but unless I'm mistaken, Mr. Chairman, that's MPO.
That is correct.
So there are various areas like that.
There is a map available online that shows you what areas are what. But the two towns mainly are Nashville and Sharpsburg, who have representatives on
I believe Nashville does have representation on that
They
MPO.
do, and Sharpsburg does as well.
Any other questions? Hearing none, District 6, Commissioner Wilkins.
Yes, the Gateway Technology Board met on August 16th. They received another year of funding from UNC. North Carolina Wesleyan University signed an agreement with Wayne Community College, and will have a location there now. They are searching for a new building manager. The Shaw Building at North Carolina Wesleyan University is being constructed and will have a cat lounge. Enrollment is up by about 1,700, and the new provost, as you all probably know, is Dr. Joe Lane. The STEP committee met on August 23rd. There was one new member from LS Cable System, Sean Smith. OIC's representative will be leaving the end of this year, and no replacement has been named yet. They plan to hire 2 work-based learning coordinators and expand communications capacity to connect to schools and the communities, colleges, and employers. And like I said, they need significant resources, so on behalf of them, I thank this board for being generous. And Mr. Vice Chair, if I could take a point of privilege, the NACO, National Association of Counties Rural Caucus, met via Zoom on September 15th, and President Greg Puckett from West Virginia introduced the guest speaker, who was Sean Spivey, who is Chief of Staff for Broadband Task Force at the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission Wireless Communications Bureau. And they're just collecting data on broadband. The Zoom call was all centered around broadband, doing mapping, and they're also working with congressional leaders to designate a National Day of Rural to recognize and focus on what rural counties are doing across the country. And that's my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Commissioner Wilkins?
Mr. Wilkins, I know NACO is doing all of their committee meetings Zoom, and County Commissioner Association appears to be headed the same direction. How did that meeting work with that large number of people on there?
It worked pretty good. There were I'm going to say only about 35 on the call at the time. It was about in the middle of the day, so there were only about 35 on the call. It worked very well. At the end, they asked if anyone had questions, and I think there were 1 or 2, but that was it.
When you say only 35, how many is on the committee you're on?
Well, there are about, I believe there's 75.
Do they have 2-stage meetings, or that was
One.
one meeting, so there were 35?
The Rural
Approximately.
Caucus has one.
Okay, so it was approximately 35, but it could have been as many as 75.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but it worked pretty smooth.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
What frequency do you meet?
They said quarterly, and then the meeting in DC is in February of 2023, the in-person meeting.
So is that something that you need to report to this group on a quarterly basis? If so, we can add it to the list.
Yes.
I'll be
Okay.
glad to.
Then let's add that to the list.
Yeah, you should.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilkins.
Thank you.
Appreciate the report. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to the chairman now for District 7, and after the chairman completes his report, then he will take appropriate action to adjourn us.
Okay. TDA, as I reported, met last in May, and I kind of went over the budget with you at that time. I did receive last week a request for an out-of-budget time request for funding, we do have in our bylaws, we can approve up to $10,000. I will be dealing with that via email with the board this week for a convention that is coming to Nash County, and I'll report on that if it gets approved the next time. The Rocky Mountain MPO is meeting today at 4:30, and we hadn't met since our last update until today, because we only meet approximately quarterly also. But I will report on that at our next meeting. And the biggest thing we have on that agenda today is an update of the bylaws for the MPO, which hasn't been done in many, many years, and there are quite a few changes that we've had to make to those bylaws, the way we operate, to bring it up to date. I think it hadn't been done in approximately, looks like 28 to 30 years, so a lot of changes that. I'm looking forward to getting that part behind us, because DOT is pushing us to update our bylaws. I didn't know that till recently when I became chair. That has been apparently a source of contention for a while, but we are hopefully going to get that done today. And Dan mentioned the Economic Development Alliance, and I'll get with the manager on those multiple serving commissioners, Commissioner Outlaw, and decide best how to have those reported and who to make the report each time.
Thank you, sir. You might also, if there's interest in a map of the MPO areas, might also make that available to the commissioners as
I
well.
will actually
I've
have it
got
on
a
my
map.
computer, so I will send it to them. It's something Rosemary got me a number of years ago, and it has not changed, so it's a little bit hard to find online, but I have it, so I'll send it to everybody. I think it's still on my computer. I think it would be. All right, that completed item number 13. As we said earlier, we do not have a closed session. What we thought we may have to cover has not got to that point yet, and so any other item will be brought before the board by a commissioner.
Don't forget your pictures.
Don't forget the pictures. Ms. Wilkins said.
Since Commissioner Wilkins is in there.
Amen.
Mr. Durham, you have anything you need to cover?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Manager,
No, sir.
entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wilkins, there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Combs. All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by a like sign. Motion carries, and we are adjourned, and Mr. County Manager, I missed it by 52 minutes, sir, I apologize.